When I married David Chen 5 years ago, his mother Margaret warned me that a wife's place is supporting her husband's career, not chasing her own dreams. I smiled politely and ignored her, just like I ignored her comments about my little hobby whenever she visited our home and saw my design studio. After all, Chen Designs wasn't a hobby. It was a thriving interior design business I'd built from scratch. By the time I met David, I was already making six figures and had been featured in several prestigious magazines. David, a pediatric surgeon, loved that I was ambitious and successful. We were equals, partners in every sense. Or so I thought. The first sign of trouble came 3 months ago when Mrs. Henderson, one of my most loyal clients, called to cancel her project. "I'm so sorry, Amanda," she said, her voice strained. "But I've heard some concerning things about financial irregularities in your billing, hidden markups on materials." My blood ran cold. "What? That's completely false. Who told you that?" I'd rather not say, but where there's smoke, there's usually fire." She hung up before I could defend myself. Within a week, 3 more clients canceled. Then my contractor, Mike, who I'd worked with for years, called to say he couldn't risk his reputation by continuing our partnership. "People are saying you've been padding invoices," he explained uncomfortably. "Double billing clients. I know you, Amanda. I don't believe it. But in this business, reputation is everything." I was devastated and confused. My accounting was meticulous, my business practices beyond reproach. Where were these rumors coming from? The answer came during a charity gala at the hospital where David worked. I was in the powder room when I overheard 2 women talking. "Did you hear about Amanda Chen's company?" one whispered. "Margaret told me all about it at Bridge Club. Apparently, she's been scamming her clients for years." Margaret Chen, David's mother. "Yes, she's heartbroken about it. Says David works so hard saving children's lives while his wife is out there taking advantage of people. She's trying to convince him to make Amanda quit working altogether." I gripped the sink, my knuckles white. Margaret. Of course it was Margaret. My mother-in-law had never approved of my career. In her world, successful men married women who devoted themselves to supporting their husbands' ambitions, not pursuing their own. She'd made that clear from the day David introduced us. "A surgeon needs a proper wife," she'd said during our first meeting, eyeing my business casual attire with disapproval. "Someone to manage his home, his social calendar, his image in the community. There's no room for distractions." But David had defended me then. "Amanda's success is part of what attracted me to her," he'd said firmly. "I don't want a housewife, Mother. I want a partner." Margaret had smiled tightly and changed the subject. But over the years, her disapproval surfaced in 1,000 small ways. Comments about how tired David looked, with pointed remarks about wives who neglect their duties. Suggestions that my work hours were selfish and unfair to her son. Constant reminders that the other doctors' wives focused on charity work and hospital fundraisers. I learned to ignore her, secure in David's support and my own success. But this was different. This was a deliberate attempt to destroy everything I built. That night, after the gala, I tried to talk to David about what I'd overheard. But he was exhausted after a 12-hour surgery, and Margaret's voice echoed in my head. "Don't burden him with your problems when he's dealing with life and death every day." So I kept quiet and started gathering evidence instead. I hired a private investigator to trace the source of the rumors, started recording my conversations with Margaret during our weekly family dinners, made detailed notes of every canceled contract, every lost client, every whispered comment at social events. The picture that emerged was worse than I'd imagined. Margaret hadn't just been spreading rumors. She orchestrated a systematic campaign to destroy my business. She used her social connections, her position on various charity boards, her influence in the community to poison my reputation. But why now? After 5 years of barely tolerating my career, what had triggered this sudden, vicious attack? The answer came from an unexpected source. David's sister Lisa, who called me in tears one evening. "Amanda, I have to tell you something," she blurted out. "Mom's been meeting with the hospital board. She's convinced them to consider David for chief of pediatric surgery." My heart sank. The current chief was retiring next year, and it was a prestigious position, one that came with significant social obligations for the surgeon's spouse. "The board is very traditional," Lisa continued. Mom's been telling them how dedicated you are to supporting David's career, how you're planning to scale back your business to focus on hospital fundraising. But I'm not planning any of that. I know, Liz's voice was gentle. But Mom's determined to see David get this position. And in her mind, having a wife with a successful career of her own, it doesn't fit the image she's trying to project. I sat in my home office that night, surrounded by evidence of Margaret's betrayal, and felt something snap inside me. All those years of subtle digs of barely concealed contempt had been building to this moment. She wasn't just trying to hurt my business. She was trying to force me into the role she'd chosen for me, regardless of what David or I wanted. The next morning, I got a call from my biggest client yet, a luxury hotel renovation worth 7 figures. They were canceling the contract based on concerns about financial impropriety. I traced the rumor back to a ladies' lunch where Margaret had been holding court, spreading her poison with perfect plausible deniability. Oh, I couldn't possibly comment, but I've heard such worrying things. That evening, I laid out all my evidence on our dining room table: recordings, testimonials, documentation of every systematic attack on my reputation. Then I waited for David to come home. He walked in looking tired but happy, still in his scrubs. "The board meeting went well," he said, kissing my cheek. "They seem very interested in my vision for the department." "We need to talk," I said quietly, "about your mother, the chief of surgery position, and what she's willing to destroy to get what she wants." David's smile faded as he looked at the papers spread across our table. "Amanda, what is all this?" "Proof," I replied, "that your mother is trying to destroy my career to advance yours." "Sit down, David. There's something you need to hear." I started with the recordings. Margaret's voice, smooth as honey but dripping with venom, filled our dining room. "Oh yes, such a shame about Chin Designs. But you know how these creative types are with money. My poor son, having to support our little ventures." David's face grew increasingly pale as I played recording after recording. His mother at bridge club, at charity meetings, at hospital functions, systematically destroying my reputation while building her narrative of the perfect surgeon's wife I was supposedly about to become. "There's more," I said, showing him the private investigator's report. "She's been contacting my clients directly, hinting at financial misconduct. She even approached my contractors with concerns about my business practices." David sat heavily in a chair, running his hands through his hair. I can't believe she would do this." "Because she's your mother?" I asked quietly, "or because you don't want to believe she's capable of this level of manipulation?" He looked up at me, and I saw something crack in his expression. "Neither. I can't believe she's doing it again." "Again?" David took a deep breath. "You're not the first woman she's done this to. Before I met you, I was engaged to someone else. Rebecca. She was a corporate lawyer, brilliant at her job. Mom did the same thing. Spread rumors in the legal community, undermined her reputation. Rebecca ended up taking a job in another state to salvage her career. Our engagement didn't survive the distance." I felt cold. "Why didn't you tell me this before?" "Because I thought," he laughed bitterly, "I thought Mom had changed. When I met you, when she seemed to accept our relationship, I convinced myself she'd learned her lesson. That she understood I needed a partner, not a trophy wife." "She never accepted me," I said softly. "She was just waiting for the right moment to strike. And now, with this chief of surgery position." "It's her perfect opportunity," David finished. "The traditional board, the increased social obligations, the expectation of a certain type of surgeon's wife." He stood up suddenly. "We're going to confront her. Tonight." "David, wait." I caught his arm. "We need to be strategic about this. Your mother is careful. She never makes direct accusations, always works through implications and whispers. We need to be smarter than that." He sat back down, and together we formed a plan. The next evening, we invited Margaret over for dinner. She arrived precisely on time, elegant as always in her designer suit, wearing the satisfied smile of someone who believed victory was within reach. David told me the wonderful news. She beamed, kissing his cheek. "The board is very impressed with him. Of course, they'll want to meet with both of you before making their final decision." "Actually, Mother," David interrupted, "we wanted to discuss something else first." I pressed play on the recorder hidden beneath the table centerpiece. Margaret's voice filled the room. "Between us, I've heard her company is being investigated for fraud. Such a shame. But perhaps it's for the best." David needs a wife who can focus on supporting his career. The color drained from Margaret's face. Where did you get that? I have dozens more, I said calmly. Every rumor you've spread, every client you've poisoned against me, every calculated move to destroy my business. All documented. I was protecting my son. Margaret's composure cracked. This chief of surgery position is everything he's worked for. He needs a proper wife, not someone who puts her own ambitions first. Like Rebecca, David asked quietly. Margaret froze. Yes, mother, I know what you did to her too. Did you think I never found out? That she never told me why she really left? That was different, Margaret protested. She wasn't right for you. No, David cut in. You decided she wasn't right for me. Just like you've decided Amanda isn't right for me. But here's what you never understood, mother. I get to choose what's right for me, not you. The board, Margaret began, will be very interested to learn that the rumors about my company were fabricated. I interrupted smoothly, as will the local media. Imagine the headlines. Prominent society matron caught in defamation scandal. How would that affect your position on all those charity boards? Margaret's face hardened. You wouldn't dare. Try me. I met her gaze steadily. You've already cost me hundreds of thousands and lost contracts. You've damaged relationships I spent years building. Why wouldn't I fight back? David, Margaret turned to her son, eyes welling with tears. Surely you can't support this threat against your own mother. What I can't support, David replied, is watching you try to destroy my wife's career to advance my own. I won't be chief of surgery, mother. I'm withdrawing my name from consideration. What? Margaret gasped. You can't. This is your dream. No, David shook his head. It's your dream. My dream is to be a good surgeon and a good husband. And right now, that means choosing my wife over your ambitions. If you do this, Margaret's voice shook, if you choose her over your own mother. Then what? I asked. You'll disarm him. Cut him off from his inheritance? Go ahead. We don't need your money or your social connections. We've built our own success. Success you tried to destroy. Margaret stood up, straightening her jacket with trembling hands. I see I'm not welcome here. You're welcome to be part of our lives, David said quietly. But only if you accept Amanda as my equal partner, not some subordinate role you've invented. And only after you've made things right. Make things right? Margaret scoffed. How exactly do you expect me to do that? I pulled out a folder. I've prepared a list. First, you'll personally contact every client and contractor you spoke to, admit the rumors were false, and apologize for any damage to my reputation. Then you'll make a public statement at your next hospital board meeting, praising Chen Design's integrity and business practices. You can't be serious. Oh, I am, I smiled. And if you refuse, these recordings go to every board member, social contact, and media outlet in your address book. Your choice. Margaret left in tears, but by the end of the week, she'd started making the calls. It was awkward and clearly painful for her, but she did it. My clients started returning, contracts were renewed, and my reputation began to recover. David withdrew from consideration for chief of surgery, but his career didn't suffer. If anything, his colleagues respected him more for choosing his principles over politics. That was 6 months ago. Margaret still attends family functions, but she's different now, subdued, careful. She makes an effort to ask about my business, though I can see it cost her. Last week, she even recommended me to one of her friends for a home renovation project. It's not because she's changed, David said when I mentioned it. It's because she knows we'll enforce boundaries now. That her actions have consequences. Yesterday, I won a major design award for a project I completed despite Margaret's interference. At the ceremony, I thanked my husband for his unwavering support and belief in equal partnership. Margaret was in the audience. David had insisted she attend. I watched her face as I accepted the award, wondering if she finally understood that success doesn't have to come at someone else's expense. Later that night, as David and I celebrated at home, he asked if I regretted standing up to his mother. Never, I replied honestly. Sometimes you have to fight for the life you want, even if that means fighting family. You know, he smiled, that chief of surgery position is opening up again next year. The board has become surprisingly progressive about work-life balance and dual-career couples. I raised an eyebrow. And what does your mother think about that? I don't know, he grinned. And for the first time in my life, I don't care. This morning, I got a message from Rebecca, David's ex-fiancée. She heard through mutual friends about what happened with Margaret and wanted to thank me for standing up to her. She's a federal judge now, her career having flourished once she escaped Margaret's influence. I ran away, she wrote. You stayed and fought. Thank you for showing that success doesn't require sacrifice of self. I looked around my thriving design studio, thought about my strong marriage and the boundaries we'd established, and smiled. Margaret had tried to force me into her narrow definition of success. But in fighting back, I discovered something important. Real success means staying true to yourself, even when family pressures you to be someone else. David and I host regular dinner parties now, inviting colleagues from both our professions. Margaret sometimes attends, sitting quietly as doctors and designers mingle, watching her son thrive in exactly the life she tried to prevent. It's not the perfect family harmony she wanted, but it's real. And real, I've learned, is better than perfect any day.